Thank you for joining us at Foundation Audio Effects. If you like this kind of content, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Oh boy, this one is a bit of a journey, so timestamps are below for those of you who want to skip around. Additionally, this is from the perspective of those who are on a budget, or those who like to get the best value for money spent. If you do have large amounts of dispensable income, congratulations, and this video might not be the one for you. Today, I want to talk about the journey that is beginner guitar amps. I still remember buying my first guitar amp when I was in high school. My dad finished work, and we got in our car, and drove about 30 minutes to the nearest guitar center. And the first sales rep we met was very quick to suggest an amazing brand new Line 6 Spider 3. I can't remember exactly, but if my memory is right, the amp cost me about 199 USD before taxes. The drive home was full of anticipation of sounding like all of my heroes back in the day. You know, Green Day, Shinedown, 3 Days Grace, Chevelle, and Breaking Bad. Good music. For any of you who have had the misfortune, however, of actually playing, not looking at memes of, actually playing through a Line 6 Spider, you can imagine the disappointment that followed. It sounded awful. I didn't have a bad guitar either. I was fortunate to have been gifted a Fender Mexican Telly by a friend, but no pedals or EQ tweaking could save that amp. Still have it, by the way. Here's the point. Most beginner guitar amps are not good. Most of them are not worth the money that they cost, and in my opinion, beginner guitar amps convince far more guitar players to stop the hobby than modern entry-level guitars do. Think about it. Guitar amps, when you ask any professional guitar player, when you ask any accomplished guitar player, what is the biggest key to tone? It's the amp. If you're on a budget, hear me out. The best amp you can possibly buy is not an amp. It's an audio interface, a free DAW, and neural amp modeling. First and foremost, in my opinion, this has the lowest cost. This combination has the lowest cost and the highest amount of benefits compared to the other options. You can get a Focusrite Scarlett Solo 4 for about 150 US dollars on Sweetwater, and there are many other, even more affordable options out there. DAWs like Traction Waveform are free, somewhat easy to use, and Neural Amp Modeler is a free program and plugin as well. As far as DAWs go, there are many, many free ones out there, and anyone who tells you that they're all easy or some of them are easy to use, I think that really depends on the person using it. I don't think, though, you can get a quality amp that you will use long-term for the $150 that you have spent on an audio interface like the Focusrite Scarlett Solo 4. Second, options are almost limitless. If you go the NAM route, the neural amp modeling route, you have an amazing resource for guitar amps called Tone 3000. You can find countless amounts of rare or common, even Fender, Marshall, Mesa Boogie, Matchless, and Dumble or Dumble clones. I mean, as far as common amps go, I've seen DSL 1s on there. I've seen a lot of common amps that people have captured and just put on Tone 3000. And if you're anything like me, I absolutely love trying different amps pretty often. Anytime one of my friends gets a new amp, I want to try it. But personally, I can't shell out the cash for something like a California Tweed or a Dumble, obviously, or some of the other higher end, really boutique amps that I would love to try. Fortunately for us, Tone 3000 changes that. And also, the biggest point is you don't have to worry about buyer's regret. Let's say you're dead set on buying a certain amp. You try it in the store and it sounds amazing, and you get it home and it's just not the right amp for you. You have a few options. You can return it, you can resell it, which is a tedious process, or you can go through the humiliating process a few weeks down the line, a few months down the line of trading it in at a big box store. You know, when you use something like neural amp modeling, that negative is gone. The worst thing that happens is if you download a bad capture, you waste a little bit of time, a little bit of space on your computer, but you can delete it and move on, just like that. Third, and this is probably the biggest point of importance for me, is silent practice. I have two small children, two young children, and I love amps. I've owned a few after the Spider. The first real amp I've ever bought was an Ibanez TSA 15 head and cabinet. Pretty good, very clean amp. There are reviews out there. It ultimately just sounds like a tube screamer. My second amp was a Vox AC-15, and most recently, a Marshall Origin 5. In my opinion, I've said, in my opinion a few times, one of the greatest feelings for any guitarist is really feeling an amp that has been cranked, an amp that's really pushing air, if you will. But in reality, how often is that possible? Let's think about it. I'm a church guitarist, and it's not like we're playing through cranked amps at churches, but just for context, I'm a church guitarist, and I play at a moderate-sized church. In physical size, it's pretty big. And I have not once turned a single one of my amps, it's 3 or 4. It is extremely frustrating. And there are times where I've considered just selling them because of it. You buy these amps and you expect to have a certain sound come out of them. And you quickly learn, tube amps, there is give and take when it comes to them. At certain volumes, certain things are possible, and certain volumes, certain things are not possible. And you expect to achieve a certain tone, but sometimes, without the use of an attenuator or something like that, it's just not possible. And when you're in a setting where you have a sound guy or sound lady who is telling you to turn down, turn down, turn down, it's very frustrating. And think about it. If this is the case at a venue or at your church, do you really think you can crank your amp at home? Let's say you have a 15 watt. Let's say you have a Vox AC-15, and at church you can't turn that thing past 3 or 4 or even 5. If you live in a residential setting, do you really think that's going to fly? No, of course not. If you live in an apartment, do you think that's going to happen? Absolutely not. If you have babies, do you think that's going to happen? No. If you can, I envy you, but that is not the reality of most people who play in a residential setting. Fourth, DAWs like Waveform have invaluable tools that are irreplaceable. Metronomes for practice, recording your guitar to measure progress, plugins for effects, and the ability to actually compare your progress over long periods of time, month over month, year over year, week over week. Even if we consider alternatives to this plan like multi-effects, the Valitin GP200 has a long looper time. The amount of time you can save is not meant to track your progress over long periods of time. It's meant to serve as a looper. And it's a great practice tool, but not for the same reason that we just talked about. Don't get me wrong, the GP200 is amazing, and you can use neural amp modeling with the GP200, but as a practice tool, I personally believe that a DAW and an audio interface are much better. Fifth, and this one is for those of you who maybe have experience with neural amp modeling or are experienced in using DAWs but haven't thought about this before. Something that I recently discovered is you can easily run wet dry with 2 amps in your DAW using neural amp modeling. You can run the NOM plugin in 2 different tracks and set the amp as one as a Victory Sheriff, one as a Vox AC-30, and you can run all of your drive pedals or dry effects through the Victory Sheriff plugin in NOM, and you can run all of your wet effects, whether they're through plugins or through your pedals, through the Vox AC-30. This is an absolute game changer for recording, if that's your thing. So, the point is, if you're on a budget and you don't have much to spend on an amp, please consider getting an audio interface and try out NAM, or neural amp modeling. In my opinion, it will sound way better than any beginner amp out there on the market, and you'll have a wide array of tools at your disposal to improve as a guitarist. Anyway, sorry for the ramble. If you made it this far, I'd like to thank you for sticking around. If you've watched any of the other videos on this channel, you'll know that we're not really into big, long-spoken, long-form content, but we felt that this was important enough that we should do so. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you found any of this information valuable or helpful to yourself. Thank you and have a nice day.